Hey folks, over the last hour live, we recorded a podcast with Karl Binger of Paris Natural Farms where we talked about infrastructures that we're putting here at the Bootstrap Farmer farm and at Karl's and lessons we've learned along the way. Enjoy the show. So today we're talking about taking raw land, which is what we're doing currently right now at Bootstrap Farmer, and turn it into a thriving garden. We have Karl Binger from Paris Natural Farms, and he is a few years ahead of us, and we're 2 minutes driveway to driveway, so we hang out a lot, and we just thought on this one it's going to be a less slideshowy and more just Karl and I having a conversation about what we currently have going on and what he would have done. I didn't kill that fly.
I told you. I told you.
So it's what Karl would have done, knowing. I don't think you knew you were going to expand this much.
No. We always tell everybody this is a hobby gone wrong. I mean, we're way outside of what we started to do.
That's the name of this podcast, a hobby gone wrong. So we're going to go about 45 minutes or so. Carrie's in the chat. If you have questions along the way, please ask them in the chat. We will cover that at the end. Super helpful to know your location in case there's anything we have to cover at a more regional level. There's also going to be some helpful links on some other video assets that we have. Please ask questions, folks. I mean, we're here live for you to, any questions that you have, even if it's slightly outside of topic. Here in about a week, go ahead and we're going to have an edited YouTube in from this in case you missed it. And again, this is going to be more of a conversation between the two. What's up?
I just need to silence my phone.
So again, Karl Binger, Paris Natural Farms, years farming, 5 years planning, let's say 5 years, on 4 acres, up to 9 greenhouses with a wash pack that also includes field crops, around 5 varieties of microgreens, 100 in chicken. Is that an accurate count as of this minute?
Well, there's probably like 154 to 156.
So chickens, 1 acre orchard with 100 trees, which is new within the last couple of years, 1/4 acre blue and blackberry. They go to 3 different markets, all on Saturdays, which sounds like a lot of work. They service 6 restaurants, 1 store, 1 beehive?
3.
3 beehives, 2 cats, and an ongoing slew of dogs.
Yep.
So I'm Nick at Bootstrap Farmer, obviously, and we are currently building out a demo farm just outside of these walls where we're at. So what you're looking at now is a topographical map of our 10th acre garden area, and that was real important for us because as we're bringing in dirt and deciding about the drainage and whatever, we wanted to have a measurable resource on, hey, where exactly is all this dirt going? Because to me it looks flat, and I think you'll attest to sometimes it looks flat and then it rains and it does not.
Right.
So as you were building out, we're going to show some pictures of Karl's here in a little bit and the change that's happened over the years, but bulldozers, lots of clearing out. Any recommendations as you're first assessing the land and assuming it's flat? Because I know a lot of people,
right.
You can't. We're very fortunate where we're at that we do have pretty flat land. But what were some of the surprises that came up for you?
Well, we didn't really know that we were going to be doing what we were doing, and also I didn't do any research on it because we just started with 1 tunnel, and that was just going to be because we were going to do the homestead thing, and so I just slapped the first tunnel up, not knowing anything, not knowing that there was going to be all these other succession, not knowing all the water that would hit 1 tunnel, right? That the amount of water then increases because of the roof, right? The mass that's on the roof, and so a couple of years into it, realized now it's like anytime we did anything after that point, we had to literally. I would stand out there in the rain. I would go out there, whether it be at night, middle of the day, whatever, and grab, my boots and just go watch the water because it would just pool up. I put the first tunnel in the flattest spot of the land. And so now it's like anytime that we do something where there's pre-site work, right, that we go out and we'll have a professional come out.
The little retention pond that you guys have, was that already there or was that was that put in after the fact?
It was there, but it was only a couple feet deep, and the water didn't flow into it. And so that's what we did. If you see that once we get to that aerial, it would be the south side, all those new tunnels on that south side of what we call the greenhouse driveway, that all now flows south into the ditch at the end there and into that pool or that pond.
Right. Next slide up, we had a during the site assessment, wildlife and pest considerations. Now, where we're at, and you'll see, we don't have any trees. Like, we're wide open. We have a cow pasture behind us where the neighbor has, 20, 30 head of cow. But we haven't, other than a skunk here in the mornings, we haven't seen any stuff. But we know that they're here, right?
Right.
But you're bordering right up against the woods. I think the animal pressure is going to be a little bit more. And I do also know you had troubles, keeping your chickens on the ground there for a minute. Yeah,
we've ran into every kind of critter situation, from rabbits eating the small, starter plants or a seedling. And you have to figure out how to address each one. What do you do? Honestly, though, our biggest issue that we've ever ran into is going to sound very odd probably for anybody who doesn't live in the South, but is armadillos. They will get in there and root. So where all the plants are, they just come in those tunnels and just wreak havoc on our beds.
Yeah. Do you feel like, and I think this is the case more often than not, that when a critter comes in, oftentimes it's a migratory situation, and it's, to me, it always seems like a very brief encounter over a few days, couple of weeks, and then they move on.
I think so. And I think when you put up preventive measures, so like what we did for the armadillos, and now we do that any time they start coming around. But so I thought, I'm like, it's just a couple day deal. Well, they went from one tunnel to the next tunnel, and we're like, all right. So then we just put a hot wire literally all the way around a temporary. It was just a quick, get some rebar with some insulators on there, and ran a hot wire maybe 3 inches off the ground, and that took care of that. And now we know, hey, as soon as they start coming back, we know what to do.
Right.
So
right. Where we're at, we really don't have to worry about zoning and easements and things like that. Now, again, we're putting everything in, like, we bought raw land. There was nothing here. And as we were talking to the septic guy, he was pretty concerned about there's somebody in the county that checks on that stuff. So we were really by the book on all that. But other than that, we haven't had to run into anything.
Right. Well, and for us, and I'm shocked because I've done all that work up there. We, brought the manufactured home in, all the electrical, all the plumbing. I did all that, and the septic. And they said every time I'd call up, they're like, "How many acres you own?" "Nope, we don't care." But that's Lamar County too. It's probably gonna be different where everybody's at.
Right.
But we so far have not had to deal with any zoning.
And so that's the warning, right? Is to, if you live within a municipality, if your county is different, go to that courthouse, start asking questions, because all these offices are going to be called different offices regionally. So whether you're in a parish, a county, whatever the case may be, go to the local courthouse, start asking questions. Your local USDA office and the FSA office is going to be a good resource because they're going to know straight away. And as we talk about all this, I know that there was a write-in question about USDA grants, cost share, that kind of thing. That's really the first stop I would make if we're doing this raw land kind of situation, to see, is there any financial assistance available? Is there any networks, even just farmer groups that you may have? You in particular have done a good job cultivating a good list of vendors, so to speak.
Resources.
As far as, you have a dump truck guy to bring in compost. You have a bulldozer guy that come in, and then there's this ever revolving door of other contractors that we're dealing with around here.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. And it's kind of fun too when you start piecing your network, of people together. It's just interesting how they are all part of our farm story. Like we have a metal guy. He builds and welds and does stuff, and a few times a year he comes out there. But we're seeing this, of course. I'm 48. I wanted to say near 50, but that just sounds horrible to say. But knowing where we're heading as we age and start getting into retirement, to look back at all this and to see the people that helped us build the vision and the dream. I want to say one thing about the zoning, or you were talking about the USDA and the grants and all that. If you're starting out, one thing, just a tidbit here is, make sure that you look at some of those grants if you're going to start an LLC. So that's when we did that, the Texas Department of Agriculture, they had a Texas Young Farmers Grant, but you could not be an LLC. And so I did a lot of research in that, and there's quite a few grants and offerings that you cannot apply for if you're an LLC. So if your farm is wrapped up in a business, you may limit yourself. But that's just something we ran into when we first started.
Right. The picture below, the further picture, that was when we were putting in the septic lines, and that was one of the areas of concern. Like, look, everybody's is going to be different. This is just stuff you learn along the way. It's just a talking point to go before you dig, before you rent everything. Talk to your folks. Like, we had a long conversation with our septic folks, and we saved some money by going ahead and running the line ourselves. We had to rent a ditch witch anyway for the irrigation and some electrical work that you'll see here in a bit. But he said we could run it where we're at, up against the fence, that close, but the sprinkler head couldn't be within 30 foot of that, within a certain amount of feet of the road. It was a different measurement. So I stayed away from those two things.
That's interesting.
But look, man, I don't want to cut into a used septic line anyway. And so to be able to do this with all new pipe and to stay clean and all that stuff.
What was the thing on the 30 foot? Just probably
it couldn't be
because
30
of the
foot
way
from somebody else's fence line.
Yeah.
So good to know. So now is that overcrowd. So really, also what I would do, and I think it's the next slide. Yeah. Most states, if you call 811, it puts you in connection with the state, who kind of runs a network of, hey, if we're going to dig in this area, they're going to send out utility companies. Whatever utility companies are in the area, that's not to say that it's a complete list. You'll have to kind of do your due diligence on that. But if you're going to do what we did, rent a ditch witch, put in a culvert, or a lot of times the county's going to help you with the culvert. But anything that where you're going to break ground, have them come out, have them run it. Like out here where we're at, there's fiber optic lines or telephone lines, and if you hit that, that's on you unless you call. And as long as it's marked or not marked, and you dig there, that it takes the liability off of you to some degree.
Right. And if you're doing an NRCS, it's actually required. So, which you could, you could do the whole process, and if you miss that one step, you're disqualified essentially.
Right. So if you're putting a tunnel over electrical cable, Wi-Fi, or not Wi-Fi, but fiber optic, anything, you're restricting the easement that the utility has. That
too, but I was just saying, like, it's literally a requirement to get paid or to get reimbursed for the NRCS, is you have to give them the 811 ID.
Oh, okay, got it. So, and then when they come out, like I said, they're going to have different flag markings. So red's electric, yellow's gas. I'm not going to go through all of it, but just those flag colors, they're not random. They all mean something. Mm-hmm. Drainage, water management, we kind of covered that a little bit. So the picture on the left was at my old farm. This was a 30 by 100 hoop house. And so the whole thing sloped down 6 or 7 feet at the end. This is where the warehouse is now. And so we really, really had to build that up. But that was also at the end of where the parking lot is now, and all that rain would hit the tunnel. So you can kind of see in that picture, we dug a trench down. It was a wide trench all the way to the back, and I ran a double French drain to catch it all, and then to pipe not only that part, and that's the reason I did a double one, everything from the side, run it on down to the creek that's past the warehouse. Yeah. But man, that was a lot of dirt.
Yeah.
And I did not account for that when I first budgeted my hoop house. Like, I knew we were going to have some dirt, but I don't know what happens to dirt. When you put it on the ground, it just disappears, and you always need more than what you think.
Right.
And then once you start compacting it, I mean, it really goes away. This prevent pooling in low areas. We were plagued with that where we're at. This used to be cow land. So like where the cows are behind us now, that fence used to extend over here. And so ruts where they naturally kind of gather and everything, we had a lot of that stuff to fill in. And you'll see that in some of the pictures. Irrigation planning. This is where I really learned from you. And we never talked about this. It was just an observation in that the likelihood of us continuing to build out here is pretty high. And I didn't want to have to dig in, shut the water line off, cut it, do the slip joint thing, put in a new valve. So at every point that we dug a little bit further, extended the supply line, put a valve box, a valve and a valve box cover on it. So if we need to build a new high tunnel next year, we just keep on going without losing the pressure. So every connection point that we have, is a 2-inch line all the way around. And then it necks down to a 3/4 supply line at the frost-free hydrant hose, which means from the very first part of this property to the very end of it, we have constant pressure.
Right. Those are just some things that you're just not going to know. Like, you don't know how much pressure, how big you're going. I mean, unless you've got a master plan that you're following.
Yeah.
You know, I'm assuming most farms, the market garden farms, are starting with, hey, we'll just get a tunnel. You know, we'd like to have maybe 3 or 4, but you know, until you really get into it, again, unless you have a full plan. But with that being said, it's really good to plan and prepare for the what ifs. So don't short yourself out on that.
And that point is why I wanted to have this webinar, right? Mm-hmm. This is not the sexiest topic we've ever covered, but if you look at that bottom picture, I don't know, Carrie, can you see my mouse on there? Mm-hmm. Okay, so this joint is right here, and so there's actually 2 lines that run, and the top one that goes way over here is the septic line, but there's another water line that comes here, and this is that 90 degree. So right here is a brass nipple that goes into a frost-free hydrant. This is the supply line. Oh, there we go. This is the supply line that runs up and tees off to the two tunnels. But here, and here, you can see that's where we extended and have that little valve. So I guess my point is, and to your point, you never know what you're going to do.
No.
But for the cost of a valve, $15, $16, valve cover box, which I'm a big fan because I want to look in there anyway, and it gives me a chance to put my hand in a pile of spiders. But for like under $50 worth of plumbing and just a hair bit of effort, I won't have to dig anything up or lose supply line.
Yeah, I think that's a huge point, because that's something we run into is the pressure. Like I have to time, like all our waters are timed. So this one runs, between, because we've got probably 12 to 15 different areas that we're watering, and now I have to stagger that because we don't have enough pressure.
Well, and look, man, I'd like to claim I'm this smart, but we used to do irrigation. Right. We used to do irrigation when I had the landscaping company, so it's like I knew about the pressure.
Yeah.
So I want to talk a little bit first about where we're at on our farm, and I think it's fun to share with a lot of the same people come to the same webinars, and we talked about the demo farm in the last one a little bit, but we're really getting into it. We're on just under 2 acres. This is the corner, and this is what it looked like about 3 weeks ago. And so grass, weeds, all kinds of weeds. So after we did that topography thing that I showed everybody a few slides back, where we really kind of mapped it out where everything was, we started bringing in dirt. Specifically, we are almost 100% clay out here, and so we're bringing in cushion sand and topsoil. With the topsoil is a sandy loam, the cushion sand is like wash, like pure sand. I don't think we're going to be able to have enough. And so as the tractor started doing that work, this is the shop where we're going to do like repairs and things like that. Is it? No, I'm sorry, that's backwards. This is a different part of the property, but basically the same thing. We're putting that pile in the lowest spot and then working the spots away from there. So our neighbor had a tractor with a front end loader and a box blade on there, and so he got on there. This is the 10th acre garden. So right in here is a 10th acre garden, roughly 60 by 66 feet kind of thing, and then we'll have this wash pack area. These bags of compost and mulch is what's eventually going to be what the beds and the walkways are going to be over. But before that, we're raising this whole thing up about 4 inches.
So are you doing raised beds, or are you just
not? We are going to have a raised bed element, but the 10th acre itself is going to be raised up about 4 inches.
Okay.
Just because I need to introduce the sandy loam to that clay a little bit, and so that's the 10th acre, and then right here is going to be a 30 by 60. And in the next picture, let me back up. So these are the 2 leveled pads that with the sandy mixture. Then we started the irrigation, and I timed that out to where we rented a ditch witch for the weekend, a little cheaper rate, and I wasn't on a time constraint, and I did that at the same time we did the septic system. So we basically wound up doing, I think, 1,700 feet of line all the way together, but in that clay, man, I mean, it took a lot longer.
Did you hit any trees or any roots? Nothing.
I didn't hit anything, but let's talk about that, because you cleared You cleared thick woods.
Right. Yeah, we ran into that all the time. And I mean, in the machine, it did pretty good. But, and going back to kind of the site assessment and things that we had to do. So we used, at first we were just using like a mulcher to clear the brush and some of the smaller trees. And then we used chainsaws even in some areas and then had somebody come in and grind the stumps up. But anywhere that we knew we were going to put, high tunnels, we would use the dozer because we knew we'd be in the ground there. But when we had the same machine there, we would run into roots, and then it may have cut through them. But then when you went to lay the pipe, you couldn't get through all because the roots, even though they were cut, they were still there.
They're springs. Then you got to get loppers.
Oh my goodness! And so we have horror stories of it because I had the whole kids. We got pictures of this, and we had to go in there. We had to cut out, and then while we're in there, all the dirt kind of fell in. So we all got chiggers from being on the ground. It was just like, and the kids were upset with me. I was upset with them because it was a hot July day, right? And I got 4 small kids at this time. And we're all laying on the ground with our arms in these trenches. And then, the next morning we were just miserable the next day from all the chiggers. So
look.
Good memories now. Really good memories. Everybody laughs about it now.
Yeah, it seems like
it.
Yeah. But this is what they don't talk about in the books. Like the realities of turning something from nothing and ripping up this vegetation that's been there forever. Right. I recall you called me one time about the black locust and all the thorns that you guys
those honey locusts.
Honey
locust. I think black locust is probably another name for them too. But yeah, that was something else. We all have scars. We still have them. And for those that may not have those trees, are just these wicked trees that have these clusters of thorns, like literally on the what do you call it? The tree trunk, I guess it would be.
Right.
And when those things come off, or when you're bulldozing those trees, right, then those thorns are everywhere. So we still have flat tires in our ATVs that we have to plug, and then in our sandals and shoes, if you step on a rock just right and there was a thorn left in there, man, and so we have these constant reminders of those days of dealing with that. But
so one thing we're doing, this is a secondary picture. This was after the pipe was laid and the conduit was laid. So gray conduit for the electrical, the purple pipe for the septic system, and then we had white PVC, but it's represented in blue here. So that's everywhere that we trenched. But you know how it is. I mean, you build something. What we're doing as we go is there's caps that you can put on a piece of rebar, and those are what like surveyors use to.
I know what you're talking about.
To do the
surveying your property lines.
Your property lines.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I don't want to forget by an inch where these lines are. So at the end of each line, where that valve box is, where the shutoff is, I'm going in. Even though the valve box is there, I'm still putting in the caps, and so we have this nice map left over to do that. Things are going to change. Also, I wanted to point out this blue line here that's between the 10th acre and this high tunnel. So there's going to be a 20 by 40 hoop house going here. And just like Karl said a bit ago, all that rain coming and hitting, it's going to come down. On top of and next to that water line, we're also putting in a French drain there to kind of help mitigate that.
That's good.
Because on the back part, we slope real good back to that creek. And so, but that's kind of what it looks like when that line is in. Now we're at the point where we're silage tarping, which is basically going to get to the next part of what we're going to talk about, and we're putting in some fence and some windbreaks and stuff like that. But this is what it looked like just a couple of days ago. That's the 10th of an acre. You can kind of see the hoops being brought in to where we're going to put that 30 footer. So we're going to leave this silage tarp on 5-6 weeks total. This part, I did go white up just because it's so hot right now. Unbelievable how bright.
Right.
It is in the middle of the day. Like I was not prepared for how
you need
much
sunglasses brighter. When you're out there seeing.
And also, it's a mess of sandbags. We got a really great video coming out on how we were able to fill 50 sandbags in less than 45 minutes, and that's also delivered to the location. We built this little contraption to fill it up. It's pretty cool. I'm pretty happy about it. So if you ever need to borrow it, rents, $50 a day.
Okay. I'm suspicious.
Yeah. Paris Natural Farms, March 24th, 2021. I feel like I'm a historian for your place because all these pictures were from my archive. This was a drone we did early on, basically after we met. So what I want everybody to notice is that first high tunnel that Karl talked about, that's that little fella right there. And everything else was either woods. It looks like you'd started clearing this out.
Yeah, I think that picture actually, there's, I think skeleton, I think there's the first gutter, the first two gutters.
Right.
The hoops were up.
Yep. But note, everybody, pay attention to these trees, because in the next slide, those trees go away, and we're up to these hoop houses that you have here. So propagation house, 20 foot. The gutter connect, 60 foot wide total.
Yeah, 60 by 65.
So 320s gutter connected, 20 foot Gothic, 20 foot high tunnel. 20 foot cat tunnel, 20 foot hoop house, 30 foot hoop house, and then our 14 foot Gothic. And then still the field
14
crops.
foot cat.
Yeah, 14 foot cat. Man, everything's sounding the same. But that's 4 years worth of growth.
Mm-hmm. The first one went in 2020, so yeah, 4 years we did that.
Okay, and then if we zoom out, that's the side by side, so you can really see the trees and the amount of stuff that's been taken out. But then if you zoom out even further, you start to see the new chicken house, because the chickens used to hang out in this area right here, but now the new chicken house is right there, and that's the little playground, and then there's the orchard, and then that blueberry cultivation is right there. So it's the first time I ever drove out to Karl's, this thick trees right here was all the way over here. None of this was open.
No, there was nothing. Well, and you back up 12 months from that picture, and the house wasn't there. Like, it was 100% woods.
Thick.
Yeah.
So where we're at right now is, again, we've silage tarp. We have a new line of soil testing stuff that we're going to be running, but we are currently choosing the cover crops that once we amend the soil, we'll be testing again, and then we're going to choose a cover crop. I know we're going to do a big daikon radish to kind of get in there and really dig deep and bust up that clay. Yeah. But I think we're gonna have quite a bit of turnover from. It's so late in the season. By the time we get all this done, cover cropping is really going to be the only thing we can do in preparation for next season, except for the hoop house, which that's just going to be a playground. Right. So the cover crops that we're selecting right now is going to be specific for once we get everything in and retest. Because if I can test the raw land now, but then we're also bringing in the sandy loam, the sand, the compost, it's going to change.
Right.
So I knew the soil composition enough to change it now. As far as the nutrient structure, that's going to be decided with whatever cover crops we do. I imagine we're going to do like a daikon, vetch, and pea situation where we can capture some of that carbon and put it in. Obviously, we're going to...
Did you mention why you're tarping that?
That's a good point. So we are tarping to suppress the weeds. This is pasture land, so it was like, I would imagine there's 40, 50 different cultivars of grass, ryegrass, perennials, all kinds of weeds, all kinds of flowers coming up. So we're just suppressing all that now in order to hopefully build a place where we can grow without having to do a lot of weed pulling, which you were tarping back in the early days when we first met. What'd you think about it?
Well, I mean, hindsight is... great, because if I had to do over again, I'd be doing what you're doing, right? We were still learning about these concepts and why you do these things. Now we do it because we're too lazy. We don't have time to pull weeds, and so it's just something that you don't want to end up doing. You don't want to spend all your time doing, and especially in August in Texas, and nobody wants to sit out there and pull weeds. Like that's that seems like something you want to give punishment to somebody to do,
Well, look, I also want to think about this from a maintenance standpoint. It's like, I don't have enough to do, right? But now I have to maintain 2 acres. So I came back a few slides to point something out. This whole area, as you saw a minute ago, was completely silage tarped out. This will be silage tarped out next after we get it built. But all of these are being moved to the side pastures, which I'm not going to, there's no way I can farm all this with everything we have going on. But I also don't want to mow it every single week, which means we're going to go ahead and do a series of cover crop tests and just being able to show that we don't have any content for that I really want. So we're going to start that process now. It's going to eliminate me having to mow so much. It's also going to start building up the soil for the eventual, hey, we'll probably get more help in here one time. We'll probably do more high tunnels at some point. Let's go ahead and start building up that soil. Let's go ahead and start loosening everything up with the radish crops. But the other thing is, I think it'd be super cool to have a bunch of sunflowers out here next year. So we're developing that, A, from a maintenance standpoint, B, to build up the soil, and C, it's going to look fantastic out here. I mean, we want to be good neighbors. We want people to drive by and be like, that's super pretty.
It's clean.
So,
what about, do you have any concerns or thoughts about like the neighbors? Do they spray? Because I know you're really close to their pasture line. Are they spraying or spreading or anything?
It's just cattle right there, and I promise they're not spraying any insecticides, because in the spring we got so much flies, like it was wild. So I'm confident that they're not going to be spraying. Everywhere around us is cattle. We don't have any crop. So like, I don't know, about 10 minutes on the main road that we come in on. I know there's a lot over there, but I haven't seen it over here. Not to say that it's not going to happen in the future, that nobody knows, but then
it's something. It's still something
that's what frost blankets are made for. Yeah. So weed and pest management. So the weed barriers. These pictures are all from Karl's. That 20-foot cat tunnel I talked about. As you can tell, we put a perimeter that the hoops are right in the middle of. That's to help keep the weeds from coming in. And nowadays, everything is weed blocked in there, and you guys are doing succession lettuce.
Do that. Don't try to go back and do it. We have so many that we went back and tried to do that, and it just doesn't work. You don't get, you have hoops to go around. Yeah. And so you have to cut. It just doesn't work. Yeah. I have so many regrets. So outline your tunnels, your structures, your pathways, everything before you start. Or
the picture on the right is one of the bay connects, the tunnels that you have, where you still put mulch down in there. So what are you thinking about whenever you're using mulch?
Well, so now, and this year was kind of a different. So before we used to use the landscape fabric, and we'd cut holes in it and then put the plants within those holes. And now what we're doing is we're actually putting the landscape fabric between the rows. So like from plant to plant. And then we'll kind of staple that down with landscape staples. So then when we are, for example, lower and leaning, or we're pruning, we're doing things, those scraps, those plant leaves and debris can just fall into the walkway, and then we can sweep the walkways. And that was an eye opener, whereas before we just had the mulch in the middle, right? But then all the plants, people are in there pruning and everything, and half the time people don't go back and pick up the leaves and the debris, and so it just sits in the walkway. You tracking with me?
Yeah.
Okay. And so the only thing I would do different now is that we want to actually use the silage tarp with the white side up, just to get some more of that reflective light in there, from plant to plant.
Right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing. I mean, I think as time goes on, and I'm also hearing different hoop houses have different crops, it's worth experimenting.
Right.
Black landscape fabric, white landscape fabric, a little bit of mulch. Who knows?
Right.
Who knows what's going to be best for you at your time? It could also change seasonally.
That's right.
So I've just got hey folks, just a little housekeeping thing. I just got to notice that a lot of people just hopped on. I'm not sure where a disconnect was, but I want to reassure everybody. Kind of see a new set going on right now. This is being recorded, and I do plan to put this out, at least a link. So if you missed the first half, within 2 to 4 days, likely you'll have a link in your in your inbox into anything that you missed. So just a very, very quick recap. What we're doing is we're building a farm. Karl already has a farm, and so all we're doing is having a conversation about where we're currently at and where he's at, and just some of the considerations that you're going to have. So if you missed a lot of it, rest assured you'll see it in about 4 days, and we're going to continue. Efficient layout design. So one thing that I see, I've been to farms, 42 states at this point. The thing I see over and over again that is kind of a no-brainer, but we're talking about taking raw land, is your wash pack, your seed operation, your propagation house, the walk-in cooler. Everything is kind of centralized. It may not be centralized to the grow, but it's centralized to the operation, in that you walk out of your house, the shop is there, that's where a lot of your storage is, the wash pack is right next to that. And the thing I want to point out is this road that comes here, and this pathway from the outdoor crops all funnels into that wash pack, which goes immediately into the refrigeration. And then that was one of the things that I knew we were going to be buddies, because the first time I met you, you already had your refrigeration before you had all this built. And that's, if I was going to do anything, it's warn people to get your refrigeration first and oversize it, because you never have enough.
Yeah, we thought that we we thought we oversized. I was just going, bought it used and thought we were going to pick up like a 4x10. The guy told me when we got there was 6x12. And I was just amazed. I'm like, what are we going to do with all the space? And now, within a year, we were always already we need more room.
Yeah. And your wash pack is undersized now.
Mm-hmm.
So one thing that you did do early on is you did cement the floor of your wash pack, which
almost didn't.
I know it's way more money, but now that you have, what would you like to tell everybody?
Don't hesitate. You have to do that. And we were just going to put, because our wash and pack area comes off of our main shed, and then that, so it's 12 foot by 34 feet. The lean-to is. Did
that zoom in on yours? Can people see that?
I don't see it.
Okay, never mind.
But so, and then we were just going to put gravel down, just rock. Go get some 3/4 inch rock and put in there, and it would be nightmarish,
Man, it would harbor clean. So much pest.
Yeah, well, yeah, and we're spraying the hoses constantly going Thursdays and Fridays. It's just wet out there all day, and if that was rock, the mud would surface. It would just be a mess.
And I'm not picking on you, but one thing I'd like to see you do is put additional drainage in to run all that runoff straight to the pond.
It actually does. It's just right now the flow.
I want pipe.
Yeah, you want pipe. Yeah. Well, yeah. There's even a trench that goes down to the ditch, but we had built it out. We just had a miss. Constant improvements, But we do need to expand that wash and pack, and that's when we'll probably fix that.
Yeah. So you had grand plans. You thought you had everything all down. How quickly did you realize there was going to be an over budget issue?
You cannot imagine how fast you can burn cash. And so that's, I would just automatically shoot high and then give yourself 30% contingency.
So one thing that we're considering here is it's very easy for me to want to do everything all at once, just like everybody does. Everybody wants to be where you're at right now, year one. The problem with that, if you build too quick, is you can learn how to do a high tunnel, but you have to go through at least a full season to get the rhythm down of all 4 seasons. And then I feel like, and I think you'll attest to, you're so happy that anything grows year one that anything is a bonus, right? And then year 2, you start refining. Year 3, you're getting better fruit. You're more consistent. You can kind of read the room per se, and know I know that this part of the year is coming on. We need to prep for this. Let's get the frost blankets out. Is there propane in the propane tank? Does everything work? If you do all that all at once, one mistake. Let's say you built 5 hoop houses year 1. The one mistake you would have made this year is going to be multiplied times 5 or more, because each house, as you know, is vastly different.
Yeah, right.
You could build a bunch of hoop houses that all look the same, but if there's different crops in there and a little different infrastructure, they're going to act totally different.
Yeah, and you're going to learn, and your vision's going to change. And I don't want to say go slow, but be intentional about it. Don't rush. To your point, don't just slap this stuff up. You're going to learn. If you've done a lot of research, you've done this before. That's different, right? I'm thinking our context are people that are, hey, I want to go from my backyard garden into a market garden.
Well, that's the thing. I've built a much larger farm than what we're doing here before, and ran it for 6 years, but I am trying to hold back.
Right, I could just imagine,
because dude, I already got 3 full-time jobs. Yeah, I'm standing on right now. But now as Farmer Nick gets on to, I'm gonna have to let go of some stuff. Mm-hmm. But how much can I let go of before it starts to be a real mess out there? Because I don't want to be weeding all the time. I have to be very, very careful about what we do, which brings us to that timeline part about, I know us silage tarping, for instance, that next run, I don't have to go out there and weed. We're going to be putting in cover crops that's going to do that work for me. And so I'm not going to fight Mother Nature. I'm just going to work with her, and we're going to do some of these no-tilling practices. And part of what I hope we get to do this time next year is we're going to be starting working on a permaculture kind of food forest over. That's the good thing about a demo farm, is I can do the things that everybody thinks is cool without having to worry about what we're going to do. So just as a teaching platform, you're a little bit different in that every square inch has to pay for itself immediately right away.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, and we've had to scale that back, because, we were just going to homestead. So then we had, within the first 12 months, we had every animal known to, know in the ark. I mean, we had quail, we had ducks, goats, and they weren't contributing, a donkey, and they weren't contributing to.
Real quick, everybody else in this room, he's still got the geese that we can't film over there because the geese are still out, but you got rid of the donkey. All right, go ahead.
Yeah, and the goats. We got rid of the goats too.
Oh, thank you.
And the quail. So you just start, you start getting rid of these things because we had kids. Everybody, the kids just wanted all these animals. And the quail were a revenue experiment, we'll say. Just didn't do well with them. But you start out, the vision's probably gets broad and grand, and then you start getting into the reality. Like your vision starts really dialing in, and then you start cutting out some of the fat and some of the things that you don't want. Pick up maybe something new. A lot of farmers have pivoted from, hey, we're just going to do this, and now they just do flowers, right? And so there's, your vision may change, and I wouldn't beat yourself up for that if you do,
So going into it like that, if you were restricted and somebody says, hey, you can only do one crop in the summer and one crop in the winter, what are those two crops?
One crop in the summer.
If you had to specialize, you can only monocrop, you can different varieties, but one crop.
Can I say that it will grow like tomatoes, right? I would do tomatoes, but the problem is in August, everything just kind of shuts down. So we're trying to work through that.
Right.
But, our cucumbers, we can actually get going, we can keep those going all through the summer. So
I'll give you vine crops. How about that?
All right.
Let's talk winter crop.
Winter crop, for sure, lettuce.
Okay. Where does carrots fall in that?
Oof. Yeah, carrots are really good. They have more challenges than the lettuce. Every crop has its own challenge. Carrot, I don't know if carrots are the most in demand. It's probably just because we can't grow enough of them year round either. So, waiting that out. But they are a very, very profitable and a very high demand crop.
So one other thing, we're at the end of this now. We're fixing to get into Q&A, so give us some questions, folks. The parking situation currently. So I've seen you have to bring in more rock. You got a real bad pothole I wish you'd fix. But
hey, you haven't been there for a couple of days because we fixed it.
Thank you. Don't make me call the county.
The county.
But could you ever imagine that you would have needed that much parking for this many employees?
No.
And does that parking, do you feel like you have the room to grow? But if you're on a much smaller place, that parking is going to cut into potentially some growing areas.
It could. I definitely could see that. It's something that you wouldn't think of. Our family is big enough too that we have already enough cars to, fill a small grocery store parking lot. Mm-hmm. And then when, 3-4 more people show up, it's just, then the UPS guy pulls in because he's always there, and that's something, the flow, right? The dump trucks coming through, the delivery people, there's just, that traffic flow, and then the dust that creates. It's just things that you don't ever really think about from that level.
Okay. I've got some write-in questions. Where'd you send that?
The questions that they've asked tonight?
Actually, if you'll just ask us the questions.
Yeah, okay. So first we have from Deborah, who is joining us. It's, what else can we know about living in the South, especially in Florida?
Obviously, the context is gardening. I would research and be ready. So, when you're in the tropical, even we're in North Texas, we're still considered tropical. Everything likes to grow, and that means pests. And there are just every pest for every type of crop. And so we get people from, Washington that move here in Texas, and they're just like, how do you grow anything? And it's just, there's different challenges. And so it's going to take a while. I would say don't get defeated because you're going to fail fast. That's what I would say. Learn, correct those mistakes, do a lot of research, find some other like-minded people that you're trying to, copy after, or, if you're going to market gardening, for example, find some market gardeners down that area.
Yeah, I would get on the road. So Deborah, is it Deborah, right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when we were working with our structural engineer that was helping us finalize the hoop house designs and stuff like that, we were shown category maps for wind load. And the coast of Florida on both sides was a little bit different, but it was vastly different from what was on the interior of Florida. So if we just say Florida, I don't know where we're at, but it's like if you're on the coast and you plan to put in a hoop house, know that you need to prepare to take that plastic off in order to save the structure. Now, what happens to the crops on the inside, I don't know, but that's the official recommendation, especially for NRCS tunnels. But
Right.
I would pay real close attention to what's in the area, what they're growing, where they're at. I have a real hard time believing in market oversaturation, so I'm not too worried about that. I would rather you stand on your own merits as a farmer and do your own marketing. But I guess where I'm going with this is we'll get a phone call in from an area like Florida, and they say, well, hoop house isn't going to last here. Okay. But there's hoop houses there. Like there's hoop houses everywhere. So if those are lasting, let's try to see what the example is before we just say, well, this isn't going to last, because they're there. There's a lot of hoop houses in Florida doing a lot of growing. Yep. So yeah, I drive around, talk to people, get with that NRCS agency. Even if we're not doing a cost share program, they'll put you in contact with some people, some networks locally.
Right.
There's Facebook forums that you're liable to ask, and there's going to be some people from that area. I find farmers very transparent and wanting to help other farmers.
Indeed.
So, yeah, just drive around, talk local, talk to perhaps even some ornamental nurseries in the area, see what they got to say.
Yeah, some Facebook groups maybe too. Yeah. And definitely start looking for those resources, whether it's compost, mulch, all of those things, and start, especially if you're planning, and you don't even have a land yet, that's something huge. If I had to start over, do I have water? What's the soil? Yeah. Where can I get stuff to bring in?
Going to the farmer's market. I mean, all the farmers are right there all together. Don't try to question them at peak, and don't try to. I wouldn't get there too early because they're trying to set up, and I wouldn't go there too late because they're trying to get back to the house. And I wouldn't go there.
Yeah, just grab a card from them. That's what we get that all the time. I mean, people come out and do tours. We don't turn them away. We put some boundaries on it and when they can come out, and that's it. But so I think most people will be open to that.
From Daniel, we have, what about the short season of fruits like blueberries versus vegetables? How can you profit off of a short season of fruit for like 3 to 5 weeks?
So in talking with Sorelli, Bob Wells Nursery, I wasn't fully aware of this, but let's pick blueberries, for instance. Mm-hmm. There will be an early bloom, middle of the summer bloom, and a late bloom. And by bloom, I mean crop production. So it would be an issue of talking to your bush or tree supplier, seeing what puts on fruit early, mid, and late into the season. Diversified crops would be a big part of that, so you're not solely relying on blueberries. Now, I know they'll be around here especially. I know we have blueberry, strawberry, and peach farms, for instance, that's all they do, and it's a big part of it. I'm going to use, I can't remember the name, but there's a peach place about an hour from here, and they do everything peach. So they have a gigantic wholesale situation where they're wholesaling peaches, but they also have a roadside stand that they have a store. They're selling peach ice cream and peach this and peach that.
Ham's Orchard?
Yeah.
They're right there in Terrell?
No. The one in Pittsburgh.
Oh.
But they went added value. They went retail. They went wholesale. They have the store, and all of their season is condensed into that peach season, which again, early, middle, late season. But I mean, Karl has this too, but it's a small part of his revenue.
Yeah, and we're just learning the berries, and so we've thrown that idea around. Like, what if we just hypothetically just quit? We didn't want to do the year round thing. Would we just go into fruit? And so we've toyed with that because there could be advantage. It might fit that kind of I don't want to say lifestyle, but your quality and what you do with your life or your time. And so that may be part of your story. We have my in-laws, they do plant nursery. They just work from January to July and they're done. And so, the rest of the year they're either planting or they have the time off. So it could be part of your strategy, but again, to like Nick's point, you may want to complement that with something else. But the biggest thing is to understand that there are different varieties that mature at different. So our peaches, we have 3 different varieties. We got an early, a mid, and a late. Same thing with our blueberries. But generating revenue from that, selling that stuff, selling those, but also maybe doing a U-pick. That's very popular. And then preserving them. What can you do to preserve? If you have an abundance, then you have revenue on the shoulder seasons.
Yeah, I want to shout out 2 things. Carrie, can you put in a link to Bob Wells Nursery? They do ship nationwide, and they're an incredible resource. Their website's great, but they would be able to speak more than we can on the different varieties that kind of bloom differently. Also, we put in a link for Pure Land Organics in McKinney, talking about U-pick. They just put a book out on U-pick production, and I'm reading it right now. It's really great. Megan Neubauer and her dad Jack, they've been on the podcast a few years ago, but they're fantastic. They're great. They're great people. It's a great book, and it's a fantastic model.
Could you repeat that name again?
Bob Wells Nursery, and then Pure Land Organic, Megan Neubauer, and then I'll take the next question.
Are you doing any rain capturing?
We are considering doing rain capture. It's one of those things. I'm picking my battles at this point. It's going to be great for us to do that type of content. I'm not going to do it as we're set up right now because I know where I'm going to add it, and a lot of it's going to come off the studio building and off some of the greenhouses in the future. Not currently doing it. Julian, the guy that runs tech for us, has an enormous rain capture situation at his house, and I imagine he's going to be helping us with that.
We're looking into that as well. Now we are capturing the water that runs off into a pond, but we're not doing anything with that. That's like phase 1 is just getting the water flow and where can we potentially harvest that water. At some point, we do want to get some big tanks, and the USDA, or maybe it was the NRCS, one of those, to have a program for water harvesting. So look into your local USDA or NRCS.
And I guess I like this question because it kind of goes to the whole point of everything we talked about is setting up your infrastructure first. Mm-hmm. I would not be able to sleep at night thinking that I just had to rely on that. So have your irrigation in place, have that to supplement your water supply, have that to help control the erosion. But I'd really like to see that the infrastructure is in place to where, hey, it was a very dry year and we didn't capture a quarter of what we needed for our garden. Go ahead and have that in place. But we're working on it. Probably going to be at least a year out from now for me personally.
Yeah, it's on the back burner, way back.
Yeah.
We have CJ is also asking about where to learn more about permaculture laying, what plants will go together, or how to plan it out.
I would take a look at a website. Brian, what was Brian's name? Brian Mossenbacher. See if you can find his website. Brian came in last year at the old studio, and we shot for a week. We have a permaculture resource coming out that's so big I don't even know where to start. But Brian Mossenbacher is a great resource for all that stuff. I would think that any permaculture website is going to have it. Just look up companion planting. So whatever crops you want to do, I would type that in and then type in companion plant and come up with that. I mean, it'd be almost impossible to sit here and do it all tonight.
Right.
But there's the permaculture groups are so giving and so great that I would look at those first. I'm mentioning Brian Mossenbacher, just he's been so fantastic for us, and he's a name I want everybody to start getting used to hearing from us. Mm-hmm. What's the next one?
Okay. We have somebody who wrote in a question, Jackson from Vermont. Are there any grants, loans, or subsidies available for new farmers just starting out?
So grants, loans, we're talking about cost share, NRCS funding kind of thing. That'd be one of those. You need to go to your local office. There is, you said the young farmers. I know there's, of course, the Hoop House Initiative. There's irrigation. There's pollinator. There's all these programs. but your local office is A, going to know what's available for you in your area, and B, going to know if there's still funding available in your local office. So I would check with them first.
Yeah, just to be specific, so your NRCS, you go to your local extension office, what typically it's called, well, your extension office, actually, your university there, which helps greatly too for crop planting and issues you might have with that. But on the finance side, you've got your USDA and your NRCS. NRCS is typically, where like we are at a couple times a year, because they're the conservation resources, and so they're really in tune with what we're doing, and so you're probably gonna get the best help from them. But USDA also has some. Now Texas has our own agriculture department, so your state will likely have that as well. So check with them. So ours is Texas Department of Agriculture. That's where we had grants, but you have to build out plans, a business plan. Like, people just don't write you a check or give you money for nothing. But then if you're looking for a loan, FSA will help you, but you have to, again, you're going to need to build out a plan. You probably have to.
They're going to make you do it, right?
Yeah, it's a lot of paperwork, but some of the tools out there, some AI stuff. If you're okay with you using that, you can build one out. And it honestly, building out the business plan is really beneficial. When we finally did ours, and we had to do it for one of the grants, and we got shot down 3 times for a grant before we received one. But building that out really allowed me to visualize what are we doing and what's capable, because it went from an idea to something on paper that was actionable. So,
Thanks.
Okay. We had another question come in from Mark. In setting up a wash station for your greens and veggies, and all you have is well water as your water source, do you use any special treatment for the well water when selling it to the public, or is just plain well water okay?
I guess it'd be what's in it. I mean, if it's the well I had at a previous property, just tons of iron, and it just left a stain on everything long term. The wash pack in particular, not necessarily on
the greens or anything.
That greens, but it was an issue. I would say look at what the contaminant is, and contaminant is probably too harsh of a word. Look and see what minerals are in there.
Test your water.
You may have to get different for sure filters it, but depending on what that saturation level is going to determine the size, the volume of that filter.
But in general, I would say no. We don't do anything with ours. I mean, we're not.
You on well?
No, we're not on well, but we get the city water, which I have no idea what that is. Like, we don't drink the water because we still filter our own water, but. Where I was going with this is, the end consumer, like we're not regulated. We don't have to even wash our produce. So there's no regulation on that. You can bring it dirty. We have farmers that show up at the market that just picked that morning, and there's dirt all over the stuff. So there's really not a requirement from it. It's just a matter of, I think, the empirical side of it, looking at seeing is there something in that water that may reduce the shelf life. That's the only thing I'm thinking about. It's not necessarily what's on it, or what's in the water rather, but does it affect or react to anything? And I've never heard of anything like that. But you can just get inline water filters that remove like 99%. I mean, like that's the basic. I would just do one of those. If you've got a lot of stuff, you're probably going to be going through those.
But again, now we're adding maintenance steps that you need to account for, and costs that you need to account for.
But these are just small filters, right? Plug right into your water hose.
Well, the one I had with me, it was huge.
Yeah, if you get a professional one, right? But yeah,
this is not like a church picnic, Karl. I mean, this is a real thing. Go ahead.
CJ also asked, are either of you doing a farm stand or a cafe? Any recommended resources?
We are not. We've toyed with the idea of doing it, but we have enough avenues right now that we don't need to. We especially Saturday mornings at about 4:45 a.m. when the alarm goes off. That's when I really want to build a farm stand.
Yeah. Now, I'm not doing one here. I'm building a farm for Bootstrap Farmer to use to be able to show you guys everything. So I'm having to restrict the size enough to where, like, I think my vegetable intake is going to be quite high, and I'll be. Here's the thing, and this has really nothing to do with anything else. I'm just telling you where I'm coming from. We don't have a good avenue to donate food where we're currently located. So I do plan to give some away to like close family and friends. But what I'm not going to do is set up a farm stand 4 miles from that farm stand that's just down the road from us and dilute their revenue stream trying to compete on, like, I don't need to sell what we have here. And I'm not going to just blanket give it away, because then that devalues what Karl is doing 2 minutes from here. If I'm giving away tomatoes and then I'm asking somebody to drive to the farmer's market and buy them from him, and this is why I don't like discounts at farmers markets. I don't like a neighbor giving another neighbor vegetables. That's just being neighborly. But a farmer giving stuff away, like in my case, it would wind up hurting the local economy too much. And so we've just accounted for that in what we're going to do here at Bootstrap Farmer. And I like to eat, so it's not going to be an issue.
Yeah. But I will say there are things you have to think about, because liability. People, one, do you want all those people on your farm? You know, that's huge for us. We like our privacy. We moved out to Paris, Texas for a reason, and so.
And then he just told everybody where he's at.
Yeah. You know, do you want that foot traffic to the liability that potentially brings? You know, I said earlier, my in-laws, they have a nursery and they have tons of, and it's right on their property. You know, and so like for the first 3 years, everybody used their main driveway, and their kid, you know, they had little kids out playing, animals, pets, you know, all these things, and they eventually had to shift the traffic for that all the way to the other side of the property to kind of have some separation. So just different things. You have to deal with insurance. You have to deal with, you know, people coming on, people being honest about paying if you're going to do a on your honor system. So yeah. I think it's a good way to do it, or a supplemental way to do it. It's just a matter of what's your goal. What are your goals?
Okay. And then we had another write-in from Sophia in Oregon, and this is a question for Karl. What are some unexpected challenges you didn't plan for that wound up really paying for themselves?
I think when you're saying paying for themselves, like meaning they cost me greatly.
Like what was the surprise cost that wound up? I'm kind of glad this happened.
Oh boy, surprise. I don't know that I've been glad that anything has happened. They've all been surprises. But the biggest thing is the knowledge takeaway from all of these. You know, the building the ditches in between, like the spacing between structures, and we're still learning. I mean, we are failing constantly. It's just a matter of your perspective on that, what you do with failures. But like the water flow, that's for us. The best thing is now I understand water. You know, I mean, I understand the movement of water. And so those are just lessons now that I can't forget. So I don't know that I have anything apart from, you know, that does pay off, because now I don't make those mistakes anymore. So for me, I'd have to say the water.
Mistakes.
I make new and bigger and different mistakes. So
I think this would be another question for Karl. What is your most profitable crop?
We were just looking at that the other day, and it's probably the lettuces, because for some reason we can grow lettuce year round here in North Texas. We don't grow a lot this time of year, but we cannot grow tomatoes in August. The yield just shrinks up. So by and large, I'd say lettuces.
And look, this is a very good counterpoint to that, because my tomatoes that I grew at where the Bootstraps warehouse is now, I was doing the best. The hotter it got, the better it was.
I don't get it.
I don't either, because I had less evaporative cooling than you did. The only difference was I was doing Dutch bucket hydro.
Yeah, that's what I thought too. Well, and I screwed up again this year. I mean, we tried to take a vacation and got away for the weekend and did automatic watering, and the tunnels completely saturated, drowned, literally they flooded out.
Well, our pruning styles are different. I mean, I was cutting them
but
back.
To us, it's disease, and I mean, it's just, well, at some point we just stopped trimming because there's no blossoms. You know, right. It's like, why do we want to spend time?
But
you know,
they decline this time of year, but then they come back.
Yeah, the fruit isn't quite as big.
Pulling
right? Yeah. So bless you. Nick's about to sneeze.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Sorry,
saw that one wind up.
All right, and then we had another write-in question from Liam from Georgia. What should I think about when I'm building roads or paths on my farm?
Roads and paths, man.
Yeah, you're going to build lots of them. But like the first thing that came to my mind again is water drainage, because as soon as you build up a road, you're blocking water from coming in. And so we're trying to connect two driveways together, but we've got an area that we kind of had, I'll say, made a ditch. that where the water kind of can flow. But now if we connect that, now that water's either got to go over it and it runs in parallel with that ditch, and so and at some point it's got to cross to go to the end. So that's huge. Your culverts, and I've seen people use, PVC pipes. Just do it right. Do the right stuff, because it's gonna be miserable digging that up and redoing it.
One thing, I'm not seeing it. I don't see it at your place, but I'll use this as a for instance. So if you follow that mouse, this is at Karl's place. The north hoop houses are up top, south hoop houses are on the bottom, and there's this road that goes past. I have seen farms that I've gone to that built a couple of hoop houses, then built a gravel road like that, but then rose the bed up so far that as the water hits the road, then trickles down into the hoop house. So I would really like to see, before any of that happens, you give yourself an easement similar to what I did here, in that the road wasn't butted right up against my hoop house. I had drainage in place to go ahead and go around. I
think that's huge space, because that's what, we have one of our gutter that Nick mentioned. It's got evaporative wall, and so it's got this wall that automatically opens up. Well, we can't open that up all the way because it cuts too much in the driveway. And so give yourself room, what you think you might need. Then you think about a dump truck. Well, then if that dump truck has to back down that driveway, there's little room for error.
Or if somebody comes through that doesn't know what they're doing with the trailer, take it out, man.
Yeah. Yep, or Auntie gets in there with a vehicle.
Or you can also do what Karl did, and I like this. I sure like these overhead picks for this, but even back in the day, you had a little turnaround spot that has now transitioned into this turnaround spot, so nobody does have. Mm-hmm. People can turn around with the truck or the dump truck and go around. So and we're having to do that past our 30-footer. We're putting a turnaround over there as well for that very reason.
Yeah. The last thing I would say on that is base. Like if you're in an area where that gets saturated or clay or something, call your gravel company and find out, what do I need first. Here in North Texas, you'll see people, and especially in Lamar County, they're getting 4, 5, 6 inch rock base, maybe not 6 inch, but they're massive, and you can't even drive over it until you get a road base then on top of that. But we have to do that. If you don't
put that down, it's going to wash away. Mm-hmm. And the other thing on roads is it's real surprising that, I was poking fun at Karl a minute ago about fixing this pothole, but you have, as the county has to maintain roads. So
yeah, once a year we bite the bullet and pay for, we literally just last week got our annual load of rock in, or our road base, just to go through and groom and clean up. The other thing I would say is the weeds, on the sides, and that irritates me, because you just, especially small driveways like our greenhouse driveway, you don't drive up and down enough to keep the weeds down sometimes. And so that's something. I don't know that we put weed barrier on one side, but that might be something you have to think about, maintenance in that, if you have to, use weed whips or something.
Yeah. But, well, yeah, that's a good point. If you're having to maintain it and you're running a trim line up it, now you're shredding your greenhouse plastic up and down.
Yeah,
That's all the questions we have.
That's all the questions. Well, 7 minutes to 7:10. We went a little longer, folks. I do promise that we'll get that link out in case you missed the first part of this. And if there's any other last bit of words of wisdom.
No, I was gonna say on the driveway thing. You call your concrete companies if you want. If you do a little research on this, but concrete washout, that's what we use for our base, and that saved us a lot of money. The biggest expense, they pretty much give that stuff away. You might have to pay $25, $50 for it, but then you have to pay for a trucker.
You got to haul it in.
Yeah, that's the expense.
The wash is done at the concrete plant.
And that's just all the scraps, basically, you think about when they wash out their truck, hence the name, whatever. They may call it something different in another state. But
well, and I know that some concrete companies have forms, like barrier forms, that their wash actually becomes products for them, so they may not give it. Not everybody's going to give it to you.
That might be local, or you may not be available in your area. So,
right. Well, folks, thanks for tuning in live. This is the first test, so maybe a little bumpy in the beginning, but we're all good, and I appreciate you. We'll have this up within the week on YouTube, and we'll see you next time. Thank you very much for coming and hanging out with us.
Absolutely. And y'all can follow us along at Paris Natural Farms, social media, any of those.
And if you're in the North Dallas area, go visit them at the McKinney Market and the Anna Market.
Melissa and or Lucas, where we rotate between those, or the Paris one, obviously. That's our home base.
Right on. Thanks again.
So,
Thanks, everybody.
yeah, thank you all.